Hey kiddos. I did not like the ending of Stranger Things very much. It honestly really hurts my heart to say this because I'm a really big fan of the show. Hell, my ringtone is like a remix of the marimba ringtone with the Stranger Things theme song. And there were some things about this last season that I thought were really great, and I am going to talk about that today, but ultimately they just really stumbled across the finish line in that last episode. And yeah, I have a lot of feelings about it, in case you couldn't tell. So, we're gonna go over all of the weird, bad stuff in this last season of Stranger Things, and we're also gonna go over the stuff that I like. Now, if you haven't seen Stranger Things, I'm not gonna do a big, long recap like I did in the last video. If you know me personally, you probably know that I had a lot of difficulties with it, and it ended up not even being a very good part of the video, so I'm not gonna waste my time on that. What I am going to do is I am just going to try to fill you in on the stuff that you need to know as I go along, but if you haven't seen the show, there might be some things that you end up being confused on, so just keep that in mind. Part 1. Wait, how old is everyone again? I do want to address the frequent criticism of the show, which is that it took them so long to make it that everyone has sort of aged out of their roles. And I actually don't think this is a really huge issue. Like, the main cast of characters like Mike, Elle, Will, those kids, they're all around the same age that their older counterparts were at the beginning of the show. So the actors who play Steve and Nancy, they were all about 5 or 6 years older than their characters. They were in their early 20s when the show started, playing 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, and that is how old Finn Wolfhard and Millie Bobby Brown are now, playing 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds. So to me, I am able to suspend my disbelief that this 21-year-old is 15 years old. Sure, that's fine to me. That said, the Duffer Brothers seem to want to muddy the waters on how old certain characters are, especially Mike and Nancy's younger sister Holly in this season. Up until this last season, Holly has basically not mattered at all. I think she's only been in like one episode per season since the show started. But every season, they tell us the exact date of the events of that season, including the year. And in season 1, Holly is supposed to be 3, making her about 7 years old in season 5. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, okay, so they must have replaced the original actress with an age-appropriate actress, because it would be weird if a 13-year-old was playing a 7-year-old. And that's true, they did recast the role with another 13-year-old actress. Apparently they wanted Holly's age to be ambiguous this season. I've even seen some people say that it was a deliberate retcon and that she's just supposed to be 10 years old now instead of 7. And that would be fine, except for the fact that you've been telling us exactly how much time has passed every season, and this isn't like 20 years ago where we're watching everything live and we can't go back and watch it again. This is a Netflix show, and a lot of people binge watched the entire show frequently or leading up to every new season. Like, I can buy a 21-year-old playing a 15-year-old because our faces don't really change that much between being 15 and being 21, but between being a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old, that's a little harder for me to believe. And to make the whole thing even more confusing, at one point, their parents are arguing and Mike and Nancy's mom say this.
I wouldn't be so worried if she was 5 years old, but she's not 5 anymore, is she, Ted? In fact, do you even know how old your daughter is? Oh,
you're ridiculous.
You don't even know how old she is!
No, Karen. I don't think anybody knows how old your daughter is anymore. If you are one of the people who decided to binge watch the show before this last season came out, you're probably wondering why the 7-year-old's voice has suddenly dropped already. And because they gave Holly a much bigger role in this season, like, I'm talking she takes up probably like an entire third of this season, you're going to be wondering that a lot. There's also a lot of continuity issues about how old the main villain is supposed to be. If you haven't seen the show, I'm going to be referring to this character as both Henry and Vecna, so keep in mind that those are in fact the same person. In season 4, we are shown Henry Creel murdering his family, and then shortly after that being taken to the lab where he wasn't about to leave. And you can see in these flashbacks that he looks about 12 years old. And for the eagle eyes watching, you can actually see Nancy and Robin looking at a newspaper clipping of when this happened, and it identifies Henry Creel as a 12-year-old. But then in season 5, Max gets trapped inside of Henry's memory prison, and so she's seeing his memories, and she's inside Hawkins High School with a lot of the younger versions of the adult characters who apparently all went to high school with Henry, but he was taken to the lab when he was 12. And I know what you're thinking. Well, this is a small town. Maybe the middle school and the high school share a building. Well, in season 4, they show us that the middle school and the high school are in fact 2 separate buildings. They have to go from one place to another to talk to one of the younger characters. Well, technically, we don't know that Henry went to the high school as a high schooler, right? Maybe he just went there because he worked on the school play with Joyce. You can see his name on the flyer. Maybe middle schoolers were just also part of the high school play. Well, in the Stranger Things play that's supposed to be canon, Henry Creel goes to high school as a high schooler because he's a teenager who goes to high school. But he was taken to the lab when he was 12 years old. And both of these things are supposed to be canon somehow. Which leads me to part 2, the play. Yeah, did you guys know there's a Stranger Things play? Most people didn't. I knew about it, but I didn't really care. I knew that it wasn't really gonna affect what happened in the show anyway, and it wasn't gonna even have my favorite characters in it, and I wasn't able to see it anyway because this was a play that was on Broadway and I think also the West End, and I live in Ohio. But apparently this play is supposed to explain the origins of the TV show, and in doing so, accidentally broke the show. So in the play, we learn that a young Boy Scout Henry Creel accidentally happens upon the Mind Flayer, and he gets possessed, which gives him superpowers and makes him evil. We learn in the show that the reason that Eleven and the other kids at the lab have superpowers is because they were injected with Henry's blood, and that's what gives them their powers. What is not covered in season 4 of the show is that the Mind Flayer basically takes control of Henry's mind because it's possessing him, and it turns him evil, and he tries to fight back, but he can't, and that's why he ends up murdering his family, because the Mind Flayer made him do it. But here are a few things that contradict all of this information in season 5. After they made the play. So Joyce, Hopper, Karen, all of the adult characters we know that are supposed to have gone to high school with Henry Creel, they never mentioned this. They never mentioned that they went to high school with him ever. It never comes up. So if you saw the play or knew about this and you see in Henry's memory mind prison that apparently Joyce worked on a musical with Henry Creel, you might be thinking, oh, that's weird that Joyce hasn't brought that up. Is this going to be a reveal somehow? Are they going to reveal that maybe she's had her memory wiped, or maybe she's hiding something that we don't know? But no, it just never comes up at all. Now, in Henry's memory of how he gets his powers on the show that they show us in season 5, he opens a mysterious briefcase and he takes out a magical rock, and the rock has magic stuff fly out of it and go into his nose, and it's the Mind Flayer, and that's what possesses him. But in the play, he accidentally enters a portal to another dimension, and the atmosphere or something messes with him, or that's where the Mind Flayer was, and so the Mind Flayer does it. I don't know. I'm getting this secondhand information from people on the internet. I haven't actually watched the play because no. Listen, I'm a slime tutorial enjoyer, but if there's no singing and dancing, I don't care. But as I said, all of these explanations are all supposed to be considered canon, even though they contradict each other. It doesn't make any sense. And then finally, in the last episode of the show, Will has powers now, and he taps into the hive mind, and he talks to Vecna, and he says,
"It was never you. You were just a kid like me. And it used you, but you can resist it."
And then Vecna says,
"It has never controlled me. I could have resisted it, but I chose to join it.
But apparently in the play, the Mind Flayer turned him evil. You know, he wasn't like bad turned worse, like in the show. He's straight up good turned bad. And also, if this explanation that they're giving us in the actual show is canon, then why even include the fact that he was possessed and being controlled by him at all if Henry was apparently already evil? Like, what's the point? Why remove agency from your main villain just for funsies? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not to make us feel more sympathy for him. It's just to be like, fun fact, I guess. So, to recap, Henry Creel was taken to the lab at 12 years old, but still went to high school for some reason, was already evil, but the Mind Flayer also possessed him and made him do evil things. And also he got his powers from entering another dimension, but also he got them from magic briefcase rock. And this is all canon. Every single one of these points that I've just given to you, it's all canon. Every single one of them. Don't ask how. Don't ask why. The Duffer Brothers are not interested in telling you. Despite the fact that the play and the show, it was their ideas. Both of these things were their ideas that they made. They didn't have to make the play. Nobody forced them to do this. I'm losing my mind. And like, I guess it makes sense why Henry would say that he was always bad anyway if he's possessed, because, like, you know, he's possessed by, like, this source of evil, the Mind Flayer that sees the worst in everyone, so, like, of course he's gonna say he was always evil, I guess. But if that's the case, then, like, why was he so afraid to enter the cave? So if you haven't seen the show, in season 5, when people are trapped in his, like, memory mind prison maze, I don't know, just roll with it. There's this cave that the characters can hide in, and he won't go in there. He's too scared. And we learn later that this cave is the memory of when he first got his powers. But if he's controlled by the Mind Flayer, why would he be too scared to see the moment where he first got his powers? Wouldn't the Mind Flayer like to revisit that time that he, like, took over this kid's body and, like, his plan first started unfolding? Wouldn't this be, like, a sweet throwback for him? And if Henry was always evil, wouldn't he cherish the memory of the time that he first became powerful and, like, learned the truth of the Mind Flayer or whatever? The only way that this makes sense is if Henry is somewhat in control of his body and afraid of the Mind Flayer, but that's not an explanation that we're ever given. He eventually is completely taken control of by him. So why is he scared to go in the cave? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Is he controlled by him or not? Who's in the driver's seat? And how evil is the person in the driver's seat supposed to be? It just doesn't make any sense. And while we're on the topic, here's a side tangent. I was already, like, a little bit nervous about the plot reveal that, like, Vecna is the reason why everything in the show ever happened, just because, I mean, I don't know, it makes the show feel like both too small and too existential at the same time. Like, on one hand, it makes the show seem smaller because, like, there's not, like, this vast world of evil things. It's just this one guy controlling everything, I guess. And so it kind of makes it feel like a bit of a cognitive dissonance compared to, like, just how insane the show gets by the end. Like, now there's another dimension that the Upside Down connects to our world, and there's, like, this huge earthquake that, like, destroys the whole town, and the big bad villains want to merge their world with ours. Like, the stakes are very existential. Whereas in earlier seasons, it was, like, minor, strange goings-on that would be super easy for the government to cover up. But also, like, what is their motivation for merging the two worlds? Like, if that's gonna kill everybody like they say it does in the show, like, why would they want to rule over a world with a bunch of dead people? Like, I thought their motivation was to, like, rule over everyone and gain power and, like, become, like, one big hive mind. Is their motivation that, like, the world is beyond saving, like what Henry says it is? But, like, why does the Mind Flayer care if our world is beyond saving if he doesn't live there? Like, why would a creature that effectively functions like a parasite wanting to take over everything, just want to kill everyone, including itself, presumably. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And these kind of seem like nitpicks, but like the lack of consistency throughout this last season of the show, it's distracting. Part 3, the inconsistencies in question, at least the ones I haven't gone over yet. Sorry, I have to get the stupid pedantic nitpicks out of the way, or they'll take my license. So in one of the first episodes of the season, our heroes abduct an entire family, but it's for their own safety, I swear. But the last time we see this family, they're still all just tied up in a barn and we never see them again. When did they take them out of the barn? Did they ever explain to them why they had to do this? I mean, I guess it's not an inconsistency. It's just something that they never like filled us in on, and it feels very weird. Kali is reintroduced after that one random season 2 episode that nobody seemed to like for some reason. But she like doesn't have the same accent anymore. A lot of people thought that this was supposed to be like a clue, like she's actually an illusion or she's not the real Kali. And no, she is. They just forgot to give her the right accent again. They just forgot what accent she had. In the last episode of the show, this kid Derek is running away from the bad guy and he's really struggling. He's super out of shape. He can't keep up. And then literally one season later, Derek, the child that they literally just established is really weak and out of shape, somehow manages to win a game of tug of war against Vecna, the all-powerful villain with a magic vine arm thing. Honestly, characters are able to get away with things in this last season of the show that are just like the Demogorgons. They rip through people's skin very easily. They have these like 5 or 6 or dozens of rows of teeth that shreds through skin immediately. And oh, he just kicked it out of the way. It's fine. He's fine. Nothing is hurt. No wounds whatsoever. He's fine. Also, Kali tells us that there's a bunch of pregnant women being held by the government in the Upside Down, and then they just leave them there to die when they explode the Upside Down. They don't do anything to help them. I guess it's not an inconsistency, but like, damn, guys, you really don't give a fuck, do you? Also, this new dimension that they introduce in this season, kind of last minute, honestly, is apparently supposed to be where all Demogorgons come from, and they're just not here in the final battle. Where'd they go, man? Were they taking a lunch break? Anyway, I feel like now we can definitely add the Duffer Brothers to the list of creators of popular franchises who totally knew how it was gonna end from the very beginning. There aren't plot holes or inconsistencies in their stories. They've always known about Horcruxes and midi-chlorians and exactly how the Mind Flayer works and how important it is to the story. That's definitely not an inconsistency. What are you talking about? We've planned this entire thing from the beginning. Okay, sorry, that was a tangent. Let's take some time to talk about some positive stuff. Part 4, Will. Is Will the new main character of Stranger Things? I'm gonna go with yes. The show has always been pretty ensemble focused, so it almost feels inaccurate to say that there ever has been a main character, but if there is an argument to be made about who the main character is, it's Mike. The main character is Mike. At least it used to be. But like, take season 1. It's Mike's best friend who goes missing. Nancy is Mike's sister and she has her own subplot. All of Mike's friends play D&D together in Mike's basement. We see Mike and Nancy's parents way more than we see any other parent on the show too. In fact, we see pretty much everything through the Wheeler family's eyes, more than anybody else's. But in this season, Mike just barely has anything to do. Pretty much every character has an arc of some kind this season, except for Mike. Mike's just kind of hanging around. So now our main character this season is Will, and I really like Will. He's probably one of my favorite characters. I love how at the start of the show, it kind of centers around how he's just this vulnerable kid who gets taken super easily. And in this season now, he's like an elder tier wizard, and it's something that they actually organically grew into. We've known for a while that he is sort of part of this hive mind and he knows when the Mind Flayer or the Demogorgons are coming. He can sense it, but now he can just control the Mind Flayer, and the way that it was done was just done so perfectly. Like, I was jumping off of my couch, I was screaming, I was crying. It was so good. This show is a sci-fi story, but I think before that it's a coming of age story, and this was just a really great way of blending the two together, and I love it. It was done really well. It shows us how far Will has come and how he doesn't really need to rely on his friends and family as much anymore. He can kind of just face things on his own now. I also love that they actually confirmed that Will is gay in this season, and they also just gave it the weight that it deserved. They've like sort of hinted that Will is gay in the past couple seasons. In the first season, his absent dad and a couple school bullies call him gay and a fairy. I'm not gonna act like that's actually hinting that he is gay though. I wasn't alive in the 80s, but I have a feeling that all it took to be called gay was just to be a boy who like didn't push people into lockers. But in season 3, Will is one of his only friends that doesn't have a girlfriend, and he gets into a big fight with Mike about how much time he and his friends are spending with their girlfriends over him, and Mike says this:
"It's not my fault you don't like girls."
And then in season 4, Will seems to have a lot of angst over his relationship with his friend Mike. I thought I was reading too far into it, honestly. I knew that it was a popular ship online, but like, that doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm pretty sure people on the internet will ship two people who just talk to each other once and they'll be convinced that there's chemistry there. And yeah, I figured that this was all just unintentional, but apparently no, he had a crush on Mike, and this plays a huge part in him, you know, discovering his superpowers and discovering himself. I feel like when most shows have like the weird kid get bullied and be called gay, the show goes out of their way to be like, that's a really mean thing to say because he's not gay, he's actually very straight. Look, he has a girlfriend. But in this show, they were like, yeah, Will is gay, and it's not cool that they were using that as an insult because there's nothing wrong with being gay. Hell yeah, man.
Right on.
The theme of this first chunk of episodes they released is essentially that once you accept your truest and gayest self, you can accomplish really great things, and you have the ability to become an elder tier wizard, which is honestly kind of radical right now, given that homophobia is kind of starting to it is starting to ramp up again. I've seen so many series really fumble the inclusion of a gay character or making a previously thought of as straight character gay kind of late in the game, and it was nice to see a show actually do it right for a change. Unfortunately, however, they gave all of this development to the worst actor on the show. Okay, Noah Schnapp is not always bad at acting. I think he's really good at acting like scared and vulnerable, probably because that's all his season 1 audition consisted of, because that's all he had to do at the start of the show. But weirdly enough, I feel like he's just the worst at just like having a normal conversation with people.
Well, it didn't hurt that Mom scared off that demo. It saved Robin's life. Everybody's life.
Noah, that's not how people talk.
I'm not sure. It's so hard to remember everything. It's almost like a dream.
Oh my god, the show has been going on for 10 years. You should be more comfortable with these people by now. But of course, if we're gonna talk about Will, we have to talk about Part 5, Will's coming out. Okay, I'm gonna do a compliment sandwich for Will's coming out. I didn't hate it as much as most people did. I actually thought there were a lot of things they did right. That said, I have some critiques. Good thing number 1, the overall narrative of the coming out. Will starts by saying he and his friends are fundamentally the same and enjoy the same things, but there's something fundamentally different about him, and he's known for some time. He doesn't like girls, and he's had a crush on someone he knows doesn't feel the same way. He worries that his friends and family won't accept him and feels that in order to face Vecna and win, he has to confront his deepest fear and be honest with everyone about who he is. The rest of the group accepts him, and it's beautiful. Bad thing number 1, the pacing of this coming out. First off, this scene happens right after Mike tells everyone that they're ready to go and have the final battle of the whole show to kill Vecna once and for all, and then Will stops all of that urgency to a screeching halt so that he can tell everyone he's gay. It's a little out of place. Then Will just lists, like, way too many things that he and his friends have in common, and it's like, okay.
We like playing D&D late into the night, and we like that old person smell in Mike's basement, and We like biking to Melvaults for malted milkshakes.
We get it.
We like getting lost in the woods and getting lost in family video and arguing about what to rent and settling on Holy Grail for the millionth time.
We get it.
And we like Milk Duds in our popcorn with extra butter, and we like drinking Coke with Pop Rocks.
Oh
and
my
we
God,
like
we
bike
get it.
races and
We
trading
get it.
comics.
Like, it just keeps going. As soon as you think it's gonna be over, it just keeps going.
And NASA and Steve Martin and Lucky Charms and literally all the same things.
The whole speech just feels kind of random and like meandering, and it just really takes you out of it. This also wasn't even the worst example of a long speech interrupting urgent action, but I'll get to that later. Good thing number 2, everyone accepts Will. A lot of people had a problem with this because like it was the 80s and being gay was very taboo at the time, and like honestly it kind of still is. And like nobody really talked about being gay unless it was in the same sentence as the AIDS crisis, and so people thought it was just very unrealistic for this absurdly large group of people to all accept Will for being gay. However, while this is a little bit unrealistic for the time period, I don't really care. The show's biggest theme is arguably friends don't lie, and there is a running theme of like found family throughout all of this, and having everyone accept Will, you know, it fits very nicely into that theme, and I like it a lot. It also would just be like really weird to be like actively fighting demogorgons and interdimensional monsters and then have a weird hang up about your party members' same-sex attraction. Like, guys, I think we have bigger fish to fry. Bad thing number 2, this comes out of nowhere. So leading up to this scene, Will tells his mom that Vecna gave him this like terrifying vision where all of his friends and family leave him, and we never actually see this vision for some reason. Like, this is a pretty standard case of show don't tell, and they just tell us that he had this vision off screen. So as he's about to tell his mom this secret that he has, Mike walks in, and you're like, oh, okay, he's gonna say, oh, actually, Mike, you should hear this too. And then he says, no, everyone should hear this. And nobody else really gives a secret that they have to tell. Nobody else has anything else to get off their chest. It's just him telling this big group of people that he's gay. And there's not really an actual like plot reason for it other than just like he thinks that Vecna will use this against him in battle. But then in the next episode, when they do have this battle, Will doesn't even like do any fighting, really. He's just kind of in the background, and Vecna doesn't even play any mind games on him like he thinks he will. Will's coming out is spurred by a vision that we don't see and a fear that was apparently completely unfounded. Good thing number 3, both Vicky and Robin are here. Robin was the one who initially clocked Will and got him to fully realize exactly who he is, and Vicky is Robin's girlfriend, so he has 2 gay people in his corner to back him up just in case, and I think that's nice. Bad thing number 3, so is literally everyone else. This is probably the biggest complaint that I've seen about this scene, and it's also the most valid. Will says in his vision that he loses most of his friends and family, but does he really care about losing Murray, the guy who sneaks in Gatorade from out of town that sort of knows his mom? Or is he worried about Nancy, his brother's girlfriend that he's never really interacted with? Or Steve, his brother's girlfriend's ex? Bewilderingly, Kali is also here too, and he just met Kali that day. This conversation really should have been reserved for his core friend group, his mom and his brother, and maybe Vicky and Robin for backup, and that's it. It would have made this moment far more impactful, and it's really weird that literally everyone is present to hear that this random member of their group is gay right before the big final battle that ends the entire show. One last thing that I think is both good and bad, everyone gets up and says, "You'll never lose me, or me, or me." I like it on paper. In practice, it was just kind of hammy. Part 6. Max. I probably won't spend too much time talking about this, but I really like what they did with Max this season. I was worried she was going to be sidelined because she ended last season in a coma, but in this season they say that she's not actually in a coma, she's in a trance. She's stuck in the same, like, Vecna memory prison that Holly is, and honestly, that whole arc of the show was just, like, a breath of fresh air to me. The scenery is just really vibrant and whimsical. Max and Holly's wardrobe really sell the whimsy. I would watch a movie of just these 2 characters characters in this world. Sadie Sink is also just the best actor on the show, and so I was glad that they gave her something different to do and just kind of let her play around. I do, of course, like so many people, have to complain about the scenes where she finds the portals back to her body. So Max apparently has been going around this mind prison trying to find her way out, and eventually she does find a portal back to her body, and she just kind of stares at it for a while before suddenly like walking and then running back to it, and then she misses the exit. And then she finds the exit a second time with Holly. And not only had they just been running away from Vecna, but like I said, this is not the first time that this has happened to Max, and rather than learning from her mistake and just running towards the portal to her body, she gives Holly this really long pep talk so that she can open her own portal back to her body, and it just goes on for so long.
And then when I told you to go back to Henry, to go back into danger, you didn't hesitate.
Max.
And today, when I gave up, you didn't.
Max, girl.
You found a way through Camazotz.
Max, we don't have time for this. What are you doing? You're gonna miss it again. Stop.
I've been here for so long, Holly.
Holly doesn't even succeed in escaping either. She gets to her portal, goes through the upside down, and then gets sucked back up to Dimension X and put back in the mind prison immediately. Like, she might as well have just not even given her the pep talk and just left her ass in the mind prison. Part 7, the final battle. The final battle to kill Vecna is done so poorly, for many reasons. My first complaint is that it kind of just feels like a normal Stranger Things fight. All the characters are fighting about as hard as they usually do. Nancy just has her gun, she doesn't really need a whole lot of backup. 11 doesn't even seem particularly fazed by this fight with Vecna. Like, compare her in the climax of season 2 to the last ever episode of the show. The next thing is that I feel like there were a lot of things that were set up that weren't paid off, and vice versa. Will gets powers in this season, and he uses them to kill off a bunch of Demogorgons, and so you think, oh, okay, so now we can use Will in this fight to kill off a bunch of Demogorgons. And not only does Will not really even fight in this. Okay, just popping in to say that that's technically a lie. Will does do a little bit of fighting. He actually proves to be pretty important towards the end of this fight, but it's worth noting that the final battle only lasts like 5 minutes, and his contributions last all of like 10 seconds, so that's why I kind of forgot about it. It was just, it wasn't really that impactful, I guess, even though, you know, it's this big moment where they like play the Stranger Things theme over him like cutting off Vecna's arm or whatever. Second thing that I also want to mention while I'm here is that earlier I said that like it didn't make any sense why Henry's afraid of the cave. And I would like to sort of backtrack that, because like they do give an explanation of it, but like it's not a very good explanation. These are just two things that I forgot about and then went back to watch these scenes in the show when I was editing, and I was like, oh yeah, they actually do that. It was just this whole last episode just ended up turning into mush in my brain, except for the parts that really pissed me off, I guess. So that's probably not a good sign. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way before I have a bunch of fans in the comments telling me that I didn't watch the show or something. There just aren't any Demogorgons at all. Yeah, the final fight of the show, they don't include the most iconic monster in the whole show with enough merch to fill up several landfills. It's not even in the episode at all. The whole last episode of the show, there's not a single Demogorgon. On Stranger Things. What? So instead, Will uses his powers to like have a conversation with Vecna. Kali is also reintroduced in this season, like I said earlier, and so you expect that her and 11 and Will are gonna team up so they can finally kill Vecna once and for all. Like, this is what we need. We have our trio of superheroes. We have Stranger Things Avengers to kill off the big bad guy. I actually thought before this season came out that they were gonna have like a subplot trying to find Kali, because we need someone to help us win this big battle. But no, we can't have nice things. So how much does Kali help in the big fight against Vecna? She doesn't. She gets killed before they can even get there. So it ends up just kind of being like a normal Stranger Things fight where 11 does pretty much all the heavy lifting, Nancy shoots guns, and no one even gets hurt a little bit. They all look pretty fresh. The only difference about this fight is that it's in a new environment that we haven't seen before. And that's it. That's all it took to defeat the greatest villain of the Stranger Things universe. We did it! Yay! Oh, and then they give Joyce the only F-bomb of the whole show, and she decapitates Vecna. Wow. Look at her go. She sure is chopping his head off. Good thing she went for the head. They really want to hammer home that this is the reason that every bad thing ever happened in Stranger Things, but it feels kind of hollow because it's like we just met him last season. This isn't like the same character that we've been trying to get for 5 seasons now. It's not like Homelander and the boys. Oh, and this is also only halfway through the first episode. It takes half of the episode to kill the big bad. That's okay, sure. Lots of people were upset that nobody died too because they felt like it really lowered the stakes, and I kind of agree with this. I was definitely expecting a couple deaths, and I was pleasantly surprised that all of my faves made it out alive for the most part. I was a little disappointed that Jonathan and Murray didn't die just because they were really getting on my nerves this season. I did initially think that it would be underbaked if no one died, and I don't really agree with this anymore. I don't necessarily think anyone needed to die per se, but they definitely needed to be at least close to death. Like, maybe Dustin gets his arm chopped off trying to save Steve, or 11, like, almost loses consciousness when she's fighting Henry. I don't know, something, anything. The big climactic fight last season nearly killed Max, and she was in a coma this whole season because of it. But in this one, everyone leaves without so much as a scratch. Hell, the gnarly fight at the beginning of this season didn't even kill anyone, and it wasn't main characters involved in it. The Wheeler household gets attacked by demogorgons when Mike and Nancy aren't home because they have to take Holly away, and their parents get scratched up pretty bad, and they have to be taken to the hospital, and Karen can't talk for the rest of the season, and Karen gets these really gnarly scars that you can see at the end of the show. But yeah, both of them survive. They don't even have the balls to kill off Mike and Nancy's parents, who are not exactly fan favorites, except for the people who think that Mrs. Wheeler is a MILF. Those people are correct, by the way. And like I said, Karen does have scars, but like, why does Karen have scars? She hasn't been carrying the weight of the events of this show all season. If anyone should have gotten scars, it should have been Nancy. Nancy does a lot of heavy lifting in this series, and it doesn't make any sense that she comes out completely unscathed. There's also, right after her parents get beat up by these demogorgons, this really well done scene of her washing this blood off her hands because, you know, she feels guilty for not having told her parents about demogorgons and superpowered children beforehand and gotten them out of town before they got stuck there. And so she feels like she not only literally but figuratively has blood on her hands. And I don't know, I feel like they could have tied that in somehow with the scars, because she's always going to be scarred by the loss of Barb. She's always going to be scarred by how her parents very nearly died. But nope, give Mrs. Wheeler the scars, even though she has had nothing to do with the events of the show ever. Part 8. The military. So the big bad military general from last season, whose name I don't remember, is still around, but for some reason in this season, there's also a new big bad military general who's the main evil military person, and her name is Dr. K. And Dr. K has no personality at all except for being evil, and that's it. She and the other guy are like fundamentally identical, and I don't even know why they decided to introduce her this season at all if she's just doing the same things that he could have been doing instead. Like, this random military mini-boss who gets tortured by 11 has more of a character arc than Dr. K. Also, I've been watching The Pit lately, and I keep wanting to call Dr. K Dr. McK. It's just an unfortunate coincidence that two extremely popular shows that were released around the same time have two character names that are very similar. But also, this probably could have been avoided if it didn't take them like 4 years to make a single season of television. Anyway, 11 and Hopper find Kali inside the military's upside down facility. Kali tells 11 that they were using her blood to try to give more babies superpowers like they did to them. And they're keeping a bunch of pregnant women there, and they're dying because Kali's blood isn't working on them. They don't explain why they keep giving this blood to these pregnant women even though it's not working. But Kali says the reason that the government is hunting 11 is because now they want to try to use 11's blood to do this, because 11's blood will work. We are also never told why 11's blood would work if Kali's doesn't, and they also never even confirm that this is true. So Kali says that when they destroy the Upside Down as part of their grand plan, she and 11 should just stay there and be blown up with it so that the madness will end and the government's plan will fail. But if all of this research and technology and the pregnant women are all being blown up in the Upside Down, why would they continue the research? Are they like keeping some extra copies not in the Upside Down too? And even if they are, would the government even be willing to continue doing this research that is clearly very flawed and not working and also killed a bunch of Americans? None of this is ever confirmed. In fact, the Duffer Brothers don't even seem willing to confirm whether Elle's death would effectively end this research. Which brings me to the most infuriating part of this finale. Part 9. 11. So the gang has set off after lighting the fuse that will end the Upside Down and the plot will explode so they can go live happy lives. But as they exit the Upside Down, the military busts them and gets ready to take Elle once and for all. But wait, where is Elle?
Oh God.
She's in the Upside Down, but oh no, she's gonna get blown up. Rather than just going in after her, the military just stands there for some reason. I don't know. So 11 enters Mike's mind and tells him that she has to end this once and for all. Purple Rain by Prince is playing. They kiss, and it's the most they've interacted all season, so you're kind of like, oh right, I forgot they're still dating. And then 11 dies. But wait, it gets worse. The last half of this 2-hour episode consists of happy ending epilogues for every other character. In fact, all of these epilogues just seem too good to be true. That's how happy they are. Dustin is the valedictorian and gives a speech just to piss off the pearl-clutching principal that we're just now meeting and honor Eddie, who died last season, R.I.P. a legend. The girl who rejected him in season 2 is back, and she thinks he's so cool now. Max and Lucas are still dating. You know what? Good for them. I'm not even mad about that, thank God. Nancy gets to drop out of college early and get a journalism job because in the 80s, things were just handed to you, apparently. This generation doesn't know how good they have it. In my day, the current day, you have to have a college degree for your shitty paying journalism job, Nancy. Jonathan goes to his dream film school to make communist propaganda or something, I don't know. Steve becomes a baseball coach and health teacher despite not having a college degree. This seems to be a running theme. Robin is still gay. Will goes to college and goes to a gay bar and gets a cute new gay boyfriend. Yay, good for him. Hopper and Joyce get engaged and everyone's just doing great. We even get an appropriate but unearned use of Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. This whole time I'm looking at everyone like, guys, your friend is dead and missing out on all of this, and all of you are just like, fine with this? Hopper goes out of his way to tell Mike not to be sad about the fact that he's graduating without 11, as if this isn't the second daughter he's had that died. What? And I'm sitting here like, okay, no. This is too easy, right? Their best friend sacrificed her for almost seemingly no reason because the military, I guess, cleared them of the treason charges that they definitely should have off screen, because apparently the military is just super nice and cool like that. And like everything is just fine. Everyone's fine with this. This is fake, right? This is like an illusion. We didn't actually defeat the villain yet halfway through the episode, right? Right? I was thinking this for the full last hour of the show. Then in the final minutes of the show, the friends are all playing one last game of D&D together, and Mike says through D&D code that he thinks Elle is still alive because he thinks that Elle just needed everyone to believe that she's dead to end all the drama, so Kali somehow kept herself alive the entire time they were fighting Vecna and made an illusion of Eleven to trick everyone and let her escape, and he thinks he saw Kali's vision glitch and maybe Eleven is actually backpacking through South America and visiting waterfalls. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is confirmation that she's actually alive, right? But then they say that's just a theory. A TV show I'm watching at a movie theater theory. And the show ends and they play Heroes by David Bowie, the end. So yeah, this sucks for a number of reasons. For one, they established earlier in the episode that Eleven should absolutely not take part in Kali's stupid sewer slide pact. Hopper finds out about this plan and tells her as much. She had her childhood stolen from her. She was abused. She was used as a human guinea pig by the US government her entire life. If she dies, she lets them win. She has an entire life left to live. She's still a kid. She's like 16 years old. It's not noble of her to end it all. It's completely pointless because we don't know for sure that this would actually solve anything. And I agree with Hopper on this. In fact, we should all agree that life is precious and it's not noble or beautiful for a child to die under any circumstances. It's a tragedy. Not to get too personal on Maine, but I have personal experience with teenage girls dying and it fucking sucks, man. I would not feel any better about it if it had been her choice to die. And I don't think people who know others who have taken their own life feel any different whether or not it's their choice. Framing Eleven's decision to do this as beautiful just because she chose it is frankly insulting, not just to people watching who know other teenagers who have died, but just to the entire audience. I mean, if any character deserved a happy ending more than anyone else, it's Eleven, but she is the only main ensemble character who gets a tragic one. And it's not to make like a poignant point about the characters or the themes or the story or even, hell, society at large. It's just to make the audience feel bad. And also it's apparently to make the other characters' lives easier. Yeah, apparently the Duffer Brothers said that it was always part of the plan to have Eleven go away in some capacity because the other characters need to be able to move on and lead normal lives. But doesn't Eleven deserve a normal life too? In season 1, there's lots of homage to the movie E.T. throughout Mike and Eleven's story. In E.T., the alien leaves the little boy at the end because he's an alien. He can't survive on Earth. This world just wasn't made for him. He has to go home where he belongs. But Eleven isn't an alien. She's a human girl. She was supposed to have a normal life that her friends all get to have. This world was made for her, but it was taken from her. Not only that, but Eleven doesn't go home at the end like E.T. does. She's either traversing the world alone with nowhere to call home, or she's dead, and both of those options really suck. Not only that, but they couldn't even pick one. They left it up to audience interpretation to decide whether or not one of their favorite characters is dead. Everything surrounding Eleven in this episode is just ridiculously insulting to me. This is why I titled the video what I did, because this really did feel like a personal attack against me. I had been saying for years that they cannot kill off any of the kids in the show because it would fully undermine the theme of the show, which is that like friendship and childhood are so important and that we have to, protect kids from the real life monsters of the world. And look at that. They did exactly what I had been saying not to do. I'm fine. It's fine. I'm fine. I'll get over it. It's fine. Eleven going away and having it be framed this way almost implies that Eleven was like a burden and made her friends' lives worse. But nothing that ever happens to them was ever her fault. She didn't kill Max's brother, the Mind Flayer did. She didn't give herself superpowers, and she only used those powers to help her friends, never to hurt them. She didn't kill Barb, or Bob, or Eddie, or any of the other characters we like who died earlier in the show. All she ever did was enrich the lives of the other characters on this show. And rather than be rewarded for all of her suffering, she just dies. And everyone else gets to move on and live happy lives. And like I said, I feel like her death was kind of pointless. Like, yes, they gave a reason for it, but first off, they only set up this reason literally the episode before the last one. Like, they didn't have to choose to have all of these pregnant women and have the government still continuing on with these experiments. They could have chosen to just not write that and just have Eleven live. Like, it's not like they had set this up earlier in the show that they wanted Eleven to continue the experiment. Like, they had been hunting her for other reasons prior to this. Or they just weren't hunting her at all. And like I said, everyone else in her friend group gets off scot-free with the military, which is completely insane. And it implies that the military is actually really forgiving and just like didn't care about all of the probably treasonous acts they committed throughout this season. They also had let her go and let her live her life earlier in the show anyway. Why couldn't they have just stuck with that? And like I said, the pregnant women all get blown up. The research facility all gets blown up with the upside down. If they don't have that, they can't continue with the experiments. Eleven's body, whether it's alive or not, becomes completely useless. And since it apparently is a possibility that she was allowed to just fake her death and everyone could just move on, the possibility that she's dead is just awful. It doesn't make any sense. She could have just not done that. This whole part of the episode, it's just infuriating to me. Every other part of that last episode to me was making me think, well, this is a little underwhelming, it's a little underbaked, but I can live with underwhelming. I can live with underbaked. What I can't live with is insulting, and that's what this was. Part 10, ending. What makes a good ending good and a bad ending bad? I personally feel like a good ending is one that is naturally built up to throughout the course of a story. Having the big final battle be against a conflict that is introduced later in the story usually tends to be a bad ending because it wasn't actually built up to naturally. It feels a little bit more random, and Stranger Things kind of splits the difference on this. It was technically not introduced until last season, but their explanation for this is that it was actually there the whole time. So it's kind of splitting the difference here. It's hit or miss to me. Compare this to something like the first Star Wars trilogy or Harry Potter. Yes, there are things that are introduced later in the story that give us more context about the evil we've been fighting the whole time, but the villain remains the same throughout. The Empire is evil, we have to defeat it. Voldemort is evil, we have to defeat him. Another thing that makes an ending good is having it feel like a struggle to get there. Star Wars certainly felt like a struggle. Luke gets his hand chopped off, Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite, Obi-Wan dies. Harry Potter loses basically every mentor figure that he gains over the course of the story. Harry Potter also literally dies and comes back to life, and because there wasn't an already established pattern of this constantly happening, it felt impactful. It's also worth noting that Harry Potter was given the choice to die at the end, and he chooses to live and help his friends. Stranger Things definitely felt like a struggle in earlier seasons, but this one felt pretty easy. People always get into arguments about endings of long-running series, and Stranger Things is no exception. There were people who really did like the ending of the show. And I think that's because there were things that this show absolutely got right. Making Steve a baseball coach comes to mind. Like, that's just perfect. I love it. And everything they did with Will this season also comes to mind. But 10 years down the line, are people gonna rewatch Stranger Things with the same sense of nostalgia, knowing just how dirty they did 11? Season 1 of Stranger Things is a triumph of storytelling, and you could make the same argument for season 4 too. But so many of these moments feel bitter, knowing how meaningless it all ends up feeling. Max running like hell toward the exit as she chooses life lies in such stark contrast to 11 choosing death. Same with Mike hiding 11 in his basement and catching feelings for her. Same with Max and 11 becoming friends in season 3. All of this just to let her down. I love Stranger Things. I love the characters. I love the world. I love some of the lore. I'm very happy Stranger Things exists. Is this mostly lukewarm but sometimes insulting ending gonna ruin the entire show for me? Well, stranger things have happened. Honestly, if the actual show had ended with that fake out ending I just did, I think it would have saved the whole thing for me. Mike saying, "I believe Elle is still alive," and one of the other characters going, "Are you sure?" And Mike could be like, "Well, stranger things have happened." Smash cut to credits. "And when I'm back in Chicago, I feel it." I also just want to acknowledge the t-shirt that I'm wearing, which is probably the most, like, niche clothing item I own in my entire wardrobe. Not only is this Stranger Things merch, it is merch that I got from the 2019 All-Star game that was in Cleveland, and it was the same year that Stranger Things season 3 came out, so they were selling crossover merch, and I love it. I wear this to like every baseball game I go to now. It's great. I just realized it's part 9/11. Have you forgot? No. Oh, I left a little kiss mark. Nice.